Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to My World. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, the greatest professional wrestler of all time, your friend and mine, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Oh, Conrad Thompson, how we doing, my man? I got to ask you something. Just we're in August. It's hot. We chatted over the weekend. Did a few texting. I know that you were looking forward to some grilling, Big Lair, all that. I might have had the best hamburger I've ever had. What is your go-to meal on the water or on a Sunday afternoon in the summer? What is the go-to meal? And because mine is a hamburger, grilled hamburger. I have one with cheese, one without. Karen's mom went to the farmer's market, tomatoes, onions. I mean, all the dressings. We had cream corn and Karen makes these great potatoes. So it was a great summer meal. I'm doing fine. Great workout. Oh, we're going to catch up on all kinds of things today. I took Cody to the woodshed in college football, but let's go back to your favorite meal. Let me hear it, Connie.
Well, I mean, listen, if it's just Megan and I, and we're going to do like, fancy dinner, then of course I'm going to do some sort of a bone-in pork chop or a fillet or a strip or something.
Summer meal on the grill.
Yes, but we grill like every day here. But this past weekend, Sunday, I had mom and dad over, and they like the summer thing you were talking about. So I did hot dogs and hamburgers. I go to Fresh Market, love their patties, love their burgers. If I can get Snake River Farms Wagyu patties and hot dogs, those are hard to beat. And like you, we do the homemade buns and the homemade tomatoes and onions, like all the good stuff, and load it up, man. Ketchup, mustard, pickles. Here we go. But, that's what we did on Sunday. We did hot dogs and hamburgers, and mom brought over stuff to make homemade ice cream, which I haven't done in years.
Shut the front door.
Yes, first time we've done that here at the lake. I didn't even have an ice cream maker, but I do now. So there you go.
Summer fun. Yeah, I just got in from the gym, eating my oatmeal in a hurry, so I was not late for Mr. Silva. He gets cranky when I'm late. I know you're very accepting and understanding.
Yes.
But old Waffle Stomp and Dave gets really, really cranky at me, but I saw the leftovers in there, so I'm going to have me some leftovers this afternoon. But all good, man. Conrad. Madden comes out today.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I've been playing NCAA, but is Cody thinking he's going to get his revenge with Madden?
Well, huge game last night for bedtime. Huge game. I had Georgia, which is the number one ranked team.
Yep.
And this is the sad state of affairs, but Cody loves him some Buffalo Bulls. Their quarterback is fat. Yes, and it's because of the logo, and it's wrestling oriented. So you have to understand that dial in. But I beat him. 12 seconds to go in the game, hit a field goal, 24-21, and he took the L, and I strutted out of the room, and he took it like a champ. He beat me 3 in a row, so he was pretty kind in me rubbing it in his face. But he let me know that he's downloaded Madden. Boy, I'm coming quite the football gamer, but yeah, Madden is big day as we record this, folks. This is Monday, the 12th. So. Anywho,
I pre-ordered that. I haven't played a game since 2012, I think.
Wow.
And then when I saw NCAA was coming out, I went and bought a system. But before I even had the system, I got online and signed up for PlayStation because I had never done any online gaming in my whole life. But I did the bundle where you got Madden and you got NCAA. So I snagged them both, but I have yet to actually play Madden. I didn't even know it was coming out today because we've had so much fun with NCAA. And it's fun that you mentioned that because when my dad was over yesterday, he said, "Son, I've heard you and John talking about that football game. Do you have that here or is that just at the beach?" I said, "No, I got it here." So I said, "Do you want to see it?" Because my dad hadn't seen a game since he played with me on Nintendo with Tecmo Bowl. So I said, "Hey, you know what, Dad? I'm going to show you Bryant Denny." So I had Auburn come to Bryant Denny and we played it in the afternoon. And when they started running out the tunnel and stuff, he said, "Son, this looks real." I'm like, "Yeah." He was so excited. Like halfway through the first quarter, he said, "Hey, pause this for a minute." And he goes and gets to my mom, and he says, "Look at this. Will you look at this? This is a video game, Deb." It was great.
I got to tell you this story, mate, when you brought up Big Lair. So we're going to be gone next couple of weekends. So just, I know that the kids won't run the skis. They're off doing everything. So people here at the house won't ride the jet skis. So I told Karen, I said, I'm going to run them real good, both of them. I don't like for them to just sit down there. So Conrad, I took off in this time of year. And I guess, I don't know that I've ever really noticed that much or I don't know what it was, but Sunday afternoon, lots of pontoons out. And Conrad, they all got all these flags. Won't get into the political talk, but there's plenty of Trump flags and plenty of Biden Harris flags. Yes. And they're on the back of the pontoons and there's American flags and all this. But yesterday, Conrad, you will love this. And I pulled up on my ski or close enough almost to take a picture. There was this Tritoon. I think it had a 300 on the back of it, a huge engine, and it was running pretty good. But I know those things, top end when they take off all this. But Conrad, it only had one flag because most of them have an American flag on one corner and a political flag on the other. But on this one, it was right dead center, right where you hold the rope. But it went high enough in the air, just a little bit. But I mean, twice the size of usual flags. You'll never guess what was waving in the air, and there was a man with gray hair driving this that from 150 yards, 100 yards, I could have swore. I said, that's old Lair. And because the reason, what do you think was waving on that flag, Conrad?
Roll Tide, the big Alabama Crimson Tide.
It was unbelievable. I swear, I pulled up. I'm like, I'm going to take a picture. I'm like, no, this guy's going to think I'm creeping on him, but I almost did. But yeah, big old Roll Tide flag out there.
I ain't mad at it.
A lot of big orange out there. A lot of big orange. Mostly big orange is the go-to flag out there. But Roll Tide yesterday.
Well, we got to talk about some Roll Tide things, including how about a little wrestling with Shoes Baseball? Shoesbaseball.com is your hookup. And man, you guys have already announced you've got a big show coming up, and you've already announced a whole bunch of names. I think our man Silva has a heck of a graphic here. Take a look, man. It is a who's who. We see Double J in there. I see Colt Cabana in there. I see Eric Young in there. That looks like EC3, the NWA heavyweight champion. Oh my gosh, that's the queen on the left. Every single day you're making another announcement. All the tickets start at $20. Shoesbaseball.com is where you can get your hookup. It's happening in Springfield, Illinois on Saturday, September 21st. New announcements are coming out every single day at 2:17. Representing that Springfield area code, that 217. And I just know that today is the day that you're announcing Big Ben Bishop. Can you just give us a spoiler?
Stop it.
Ben is finally getting his Wembley moment today at 2:17, right?
I respect the heck out of Ben. He is being pushy. He's being aggressive, but I have told him off air, pal, we did that ad free and got in depth, and you got to make things happen. You got to get aggressive. I think he kind of got out over his skis, and he really wants this. But I told him the card was already made. We're making announcements every day this week. And Conrad, the biggest stars, we've got some big stars being announced this week. We have a luchador. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, we've got an announcement every day this week. It's gonna be exciting. But old Big Ben, I'll say this. My baseball partner, Jamie Toole, chief storyteller, as he likes to refer to himself when we refer to him, that's on his business card. It's not CEO, it's not general manager, it's not president, it's chief storyteller. And he truly believes this. And he texted me and he said, are you booking Ben? I said, nope. He said, well, do you mind if I kind of retweet him? Because, man, is he helping tell us our story? I said, yeah, do it all you want. I said, he's at least taking a page out of the book that to help things along. But old Big Ben is helping us, creating a lot of chatter, as we say. But no, shoesbaseball.com, Capital City Clash, Saturday, September the 21st. And we are very, very excited about it in the Springfield, Illinois area.
Go check it out, shoesbaseball.com. You're going to love it. Before we move on, our topic today, I should mention, is Kevin Nash in TNA. And that just seems like it's going to be fun.
It is. The research was fantastic. It was super in-depth. And, Connie, if we get through half of it, curb stomping Silva. I don't know. He might jump for joy, but I don't think we're going to get through all of it. But we'll see.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. But before we talk about yesteryear, we got to talk about last week. I can't believe this is real, but somehow, some way, last week you were in the main event on TBS against a guy who you hold in very high regard, one of the greatest professional wrestlers to ever step through the ropes, Mr. Bryan Danielson. You hooked it up. You guys had an incredible brawl through the whole doggone building. I mean, you start off hot with the big guitar shot, sets the pace. We're taking suplexes on trash cans, and people were a bloody mess. You were worse for wear on the other side. How are you feeling today, Jeff?
Today, much better. My partner, Jay Lethal, texts me Saturday morning. And so match on Wednesday. Thursday, it's funny, Conrad, and, just not being in that regular cadence of working, twice a week or whatever it may be. It's just kind of a whole different things. And I'm not going to say my biological age has anything to do with it. I'm not going to speak that into existence, but maybe it does. But anyhow, Thursday, I was fine. Friday morning when I woke up, I went, okay, here's the soreness and got to work all through that. Saturday, Conrad, I was still sore. Chin is now itching, but I was pretty sore. But yeah, that was quite the physical confrontation.
Hang on, you said your chin was sore. I don't think everybody knows what you're talking about. Why is your chin sore?
Oh, if you saw that finish when the American Dragon did his high knee with the steel folding metal chair, I took one on the chin as he hit me. It wasn't the initial impact, but as the chair fell to the floor, my chin caught it on the mat. So all good. 5 stitches. Comes with the territory. It is what it is. But man, oh man, as somebody pointed out, and I thought it was pretty cool. And our YouTube listeners, YouTube watchers can see the photo right now of Steamboat raising both of our hands. That is a very, very cool moment for this old kid from Nashville, Tennessee. Conrad, it was it was cool. Who would have thought, man? Seriously, who would have thought? I don't really know what to put into words on it, Conrad. It was a special evening in so many ways. And you know what, Conrad? You know better than anybody because you've kind of really the inside baseball of all of this. So it was definitely a special night.
I was thrilled to see it happen. I was so happy for my friend Megan, who
go ahead. You share that story, and I'll share. I got one.
Megan, who almost never watches wrestling. It's never her preference. So usually I wind up watching the next morning and catching up, whatever I may have missed. But when I told her that you were wrestling Bryan Danielson, she double checked and said, "That's Daniel Bryan, right?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, is he on first or last?" I said, "It could be first, last, or crossover. I'm not sure." And of course, she, being who she is, she goes, "Well, did you text him and ask?" And I'm like, "No, he's kind of busy. I'm just going to let it lie." And she's like, "Well, I used to text Dad." I go, "Yeah, I get it. I'm just going to let him do his match. It'll be fine. We're going to watch." And she goes, "Okay, good." So we skip around and find it. She was glued to it, man. We were so impressed, so happy for you, and thankful that we got to see it and say that we know you and we're proud for you. It was an incredible performance, an incredible moment. I mean, playing with house money is all I could think. Cause I'm once upon a time when you and I started doing this show, you didn't think you were wrestling anymore. You thought that was in the rearview mirror, and you proved to yourself and the whole world in prime time last week. Nope. He's still here. Old Double J doing his thing.
Crazy. So, my oldest, Jocelyn, is 27, right? So let's go back 20 years. I'm just trying to say, her first live show would have probably been, the early TNA days, but not much. And so maybe the Orlando days, then she kind of saw quite a bit of that. But, as a little girl, she told me, I knew this. She didn't tell me, but she texted me. That would have been, Thursday. And she's like, "Dad, I haven't been that nervous and I don't know when." And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, parts of that I just didn't like." And she'd probably be embarrassed, or I don't know, maybe not. But, a 27-year-old girl who has literally grown up watching her dad do this stuff. Anyway, she just said, I got into it. It was, she said, I got worried for you. And when y'all got up there around all those people, she didn't say atmosphere, but she says, man, what kind of I think her words were, that was just kind of a crazy scene. I got real nervous. So anyhow, that's Conrad, that's why we do it. That's why I do it. The magic of wrestling is just a part of, it's just, there's no other form of entertainment like it, period. There just isn't. I know we talk about that, and everybody out there who's listening to this has an affinity, some shape, form, or fashion to professional wrestling, but just getting engaged in it as a viewer. I mean, I still do it all the time. So it was pretty cool to hear her say that. And I'm like, honey, I hate that you got nervous. She's like, Dad, I couldn't help it. And then, you know, she, like a few others, like, I didn't know if you busted your ear on the end and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, pretty cool, Conrad. It is a for sure bucket list item for me.
I was so glad to see it. And I'm ready for what's next. Of course, as you're listening to this, tomorrow night, great friend of the show, Cody's dude, Jay Lethal,
buddy,
is going to take Hangman Adam Page to the woodshed. And we know that the finish is a foregone conclusion. Jay Lethal's going over. But I guess the question is, I know that Cody has been helping with the strategy and the practicing and the planning and all that. But is he going to be able to work it out with his local high school so he'll be able to miss school on Wednesday and Thursday so he can walk that aisle with Jay Lethal? Or are we still trying to negotiate that?
Principal said no. And
shit.
Yeah, I know. But I told Codes, I said, look, with the world of FaceTime,
yes,
I'll have my iPad there, and he's got his phone, and probably from the confines of Cody's gaming chair, because he feels comfortable in the gaming chair, he'll probably give Jay. Probably he gets out of school at 3, so 3:30. That's 4:30 in Norfolk. So we'll probably have 2 or 3 coaching sessions before bell time at 8. So
that's what we need. That's what we need, because we need Jay Lethal to get in there and soften him up, because we all know what's coming.
Oh boy.
Our friend Mr. Campbell has started a trend that has gone viral. You've heard this song on My World. You've heard the song on 83 Weeks. You've heard the song on What Happened When. And of course, it's sweeping the charts. I know Cody found it on iTunes last week, #1 in the UK, but it's making its way across the pond. And now we're going to, as they say in wrestling, strap the rocket ship to it, or maybe in music, it's #1 with a bullet. That old trend jacker that she is, paying a little homage to the guy who gave her start, Taylor Swift. That's right. The Taylor's, huh?
Yeah. What guy? Cody plays this song over and over and over around the house.
All wrestling fans do.
Karen has had enough, but
it's Megan's ringtone. I mean, and you wait until people hear the Taylor Swift version. Have you heard this? Is this the world premiere? Is this the debut?
Wait a minute.
Yeah, Taylor Swift covered it, cuz.
Connie.
I mean, you're in the house she used to babysit your kids in, right? That same very house. Was it the room you're in right now, or was it a different room?
Well, that picture of them playing the piano is just right through those doors. So
that's what I'm saying.
You're digging, bud. You are.
These are fact. Listen, you tell me, is this not Taylor Swift? Let's take a listen.
Hey, Tori Khan, you coward. But Jarrett versus Hangman Page. Hey, Tony Khan, you coward. Make Wembley Stadium a state. Jeff been shown such disrespect. Over the line, that ain't just cowboy step. Tom Campbell's best friend must make things right. Then Wembley Stadium on a Sunday night. Yeah, the all-in crowd all breathless, with a great British guitar necklace. Hey, Tony Khan, you coward. Book Jarrett versus Hangman Page. Hey, Tony Khan, you coward. Book Jarrett versus Hangman Page.
Come on. Now listen, I got to apologize. She recorded that on her Apple iPhone, so it's overmodulated and things like that. But she's going to get in the studio just hours. What?
The still photo. God.
What? Tony Khan's a coward if he doesn't book Jeff Jarrett versus Hangman Adam Page. Those aren't my words. Those are Taylor Swift's words. So if you're going to attribute that quote, give proper credit to Mr. Swift.
Those still photos.
It makes it.
Married. Oh, Lord. Tom Campbell needs his ass beat. It's just that simple. He does need a guitar necklace. Oh, boy.
Listen, I'm so thankful and so proud that Tom Campbell got together with Taylor Swift and we made the impossible possible. We've done our part, Tony. We just need you to do your part and give the people what they want.
Oh, Lord.
Of course, All In is right around the corner. Tickets are on sale now. You can see this in person when Jeff Jarrett is going to main event against Hangman Adam Page. It is the most riveting story in the history of All Elite Wrestling. And tickets are on sale now at ticketmaster.co.uk or livenation.co.uk. That's ticketmaster.co.uk. Go see Double J across the pond, giving some people some guitar necklaces.
Conrad, before we dive into the topic, it is all kidding aside. Norfolk tomorrow, Triple Mania Saturday.
Wow.
Cardiff Wednesday.
Wait. Is this the Mexico City Triple Mania?
Yes.
Hey, folks, you want to watch that one? I'm not going to give you any spoilers or any inside track, but let me just.
I know. I think I can tell by the look on your face.
Are we talking about? Are you thinking what I'm thinking, and I'm thinking what you're thinking,
buddy? Have my people call your people.
I think the internet might melt. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And listen, there's rumor and innuendo out there that there's another big announcement coming this week in wrestling. Stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, snatch yourself some tickets. Go see Double J. Go see Jay Lethal. Support these folks at AEWTIX.com. And what a crazy schedule, man. Hitting Virginia. Allegedly, there's a showdown in Mexico this weekend. And, man, it's going to be a lot of fun.
In Cardiff. Yeah, wow. And then we do the big one. Wembley Stadium. Otete's there this weekend. She's got six. Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. 6 Wembley Stadium shows. She's doing all right.
Do you know the backstory about the negotiation that happened between AEW and Tay for Wembley?
I'm pretty sure I do.
Isn't that wild? I mean, and to think in the middle of that, they got her to agree to cut that song for you. Part of the story. It all fits together. Hey, we're having a lot of fun here. Go check out AEW. Support what Double J's doing these days at AEWTIX.com. But we are going to talk about Kevin Nash, I promise. But before we do, not to do downer stuff, but I do want to at least have an opportunity to acknowledge that we lost a friend of ours. Mr. Kevin Sullivan passed away. We were all sort of under the impression that, man, he'd pulled the nose up on this thing.
Yes.
And we thought, better days were headed our way. I've had a couple of phone calls with him, and man, he was in the best spirits. And then, boy, life is fragile. He's no longer with us. He passed away way, way too young. I know he lived a full life, and I know he got all the life. He squeezed all out he could, boy. But the influence he had, I just don't think has really been reconciled or recognized. Like, I don't think, as the kids these days say, I don't think he got his flowers. So I wanted to give you just a minute because I know you spent some time working with Kevin Sullivan in your day and got to know him as a professional and as an individual, and wanted to give you a few minutes to just share your thoughts.
Oh, man. The last in-depth conversation, I don't even know if you know this, Conrad. The last in-depth conversation I had with Kevin Sullivan was about the Ric Flair last match. That entire process. I'll say not just the match, but the show, the build up to it, the press conference. I told him some things that obviously he had no idea about. That originally we're going to do it at the Expo Center, and just all that. And when I heard about his passing, my mind kind of started reflecting on that conversation. And I can remember the kind of the takeaway of all that was this guy is in a lot of ways still a student of the game, that he was asking like, oh, watch this and this and that. And then of course, you know, he worked for my father, and that was the original connection on a lot of our conversations. They both had a lot of respect for each other. My dad was real bullish in the, you know, when I went to WCW the first time on the Flair, he thought they were the Flair storyline, the Four Horsemen storyline. And he was, you know, we had some conversation about that. But then, you know, in the last, I don't know, when me and Dad would go to lunch on those once a month for the last couple of years before he passed, and when we kind of got into the reminiscing of different things, we had a couple of conversations. That's where he called them wrestling minds. That's how, and I guess I do too. Like the wrestling mind is, for lack of a better word, big picture. Not really just focusing on just the match, or even a promo. It's like, how is this going to go into the big picture of the entire show, and pulling back 30,000 feet and 50,000 feet. And, you know, the guys in that generation, which I believe they're, if not one, two generations, you know, between me and them, is that they were so bottom line driven, which I'm grateful that I got to be around that and listen to that, and them thinking through, because the business was fundamentally different. Just and Kevin and me had different conversations about that, and we talked about Ric Flair's last match. He was like, you guys were motivated that when you made the decision, okay, we're going to sell even more tickets, not, you know, the from the Expo Center to Municipal Auditorium, and sell the most buys. And he, you know, we talked about it. He said that had to have been fun. I said, me and Conrad and a bunch of others, we had an absolute blast. Rick was motivated, and so many other were motivated. But, you know, guys like that, and I think about Kevin in the Shark Tank, if you will, of WCW, how he survived and thrived in spite of a corporate structure with talent that had the ability to not just say no, but no, I don't want to do it, but no, we're going to do it this way. And he still thrived. So, and I shared that with him a couple of times. I don't know how you did it, but just a ton of respect. And you're right. A guy like Kevin, his impact on the business is felt through so many different people, that so many people, and it touched me how Shivani really had some cool words and kind of that about Kevin, but because Tony was in the middle of all that, and Tony knew, all right, this guy is really, if not the straw, he's one of the straws stirring the drink. And so his respect for Kevin showed to me a lot as well. But yeah, the business is better off for him.
Lord bless him. What a great human being. What an innovator. What a creative mind. Gone way too soon.
What a reminder, Conrad. Me and you hadn't talked about this, is that, yeah, that was my impression, that like, all right, he's out of the woods, you know, a tragic accident, but he's going to pull through it.
Yes.
Damn. I mean, that what a life is short. You just
Gomez called me, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and was like, "Hey, I'm sitting here with Kevin. Do you have a minute to talk again?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." Man, he was laughing and joking, just same old Kevin. And you just thought, man, here we go. You know, he'll kick out. He's on the comeback trail, and
yeah,
it just didn't happen. But you know, I don't know if you saw, but a lot of folks in the wrestling community, including our friend Justin Barrasso from Sports Illustrated, they're loosely affiliated with the Boston Red Sox, and nobody loved the Red Sox more than Kevin Sullivan. They gave him a shout out on the scoreboard the other night, and I thought that was awesome. And somewhere Kevin Sullivan was real happy to see that. And I hate it for folks who didn't get to meet him and have been led to believe nonsense, rumor, and innuendo and message board, silly fan stuff. If you got to meet Kevin Sullivan, you loved Kevin Sullivan, and we love Kevin Sullivan on this show.
Sorry, but how many episodes did you get to do with it? Talks with the
Tuesdays with the Taskmaster? I'm not sure. Originally when we first started it, he was doing it with Paulie Bromwell, but then I tagged in, and we've had Kevin at a bunch of StarCasts, and of course last year at Top Guy Weekend. I mean, Kevin's been to the house a few times. Like, his wife made this beautiful piece of art that still hangs in our house. That's got the driftwood they collected and stones they collected from the ocean. Just awesome stuff. He gifted me a Patriots jersey, like a game worn jersey from just the coolest, nicest sports fan, wrestling fan, just like all of us. Just couldn't get enough of it and couldn't wait to talk about it a little more.
Those are obviously even more special now. You know?
Absolutely. Shout out to Kevin Sullivan. We'll keep you abreast when we get some more information about how we can celebrate and support his family. Let's try to transition now and talk about something fun. I hate to be Debbie Downer, but I didn't feel like we could really do that without
you doing that too,
honoring Kevin. Let's talk about another Kevin. We're going to be taking a look at the TNA run of someone whose relationship with Jeff came up a couple of weeks ago on our Shawn Michaels episode, Kevin Nash. Of course, there's no way to fit all of this in, but so we're going to talk about things like Paparazzi Productions and stuff like that next week or next time we cover Kevin Nash and TNA. But let's start at the very beginning. You first launched TNA with this Wednesday pay-per-view opportunity. Eventually, you wind up landing a deal on Fox Sports Net. You create Impact. And now Victory Road is going to be the first more traditional pay-per-view. And it makes the newsletters that you feel like you need more star power for this 3-hour extravaganza known as Victory Road. Was Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, were they just, you knew they had star power and they were friends of yours, so maybe it might be a little easier to get a deal there? Or what's the thinking there between, because it's credited as being your idea in the newsletters. Is that right?
Yeah, when looking at the research and recalling a lot of this, and man, there's so much. As we're going to get into the episode when Dusty comes a part of this story, and he's booking, and then he's a part of a team, and then there's some questions in there that I don't think I'm going to have all the answers as far as some creative things. But as I got done with the research, and then I kind of stepped back into it, like I feel like I almost have to share this because of the kind of the understanding of me and Kevin's relationship. And it goes without saying, when you come up with the guy, and I'm not saying come up, but Kevin got to the WWF, I think 93. I got there into 93. But in 94, me and Kevin, we traveled a lot together, and this is how far back we go. And again, I think it gives a much deeper understanding of our relationship, the ups and the downs and everything. I think the very first conversation I can ever recall having with Kevin is about the show Friends. And I was in an aisle seat in Coach, and Kevin was in an aisle seat in Coach. I think that is a pretty good jumping off point, that's where we were both at in our careers before he became champion and before he got first. But we traveled the roads and roomed together and worked out together. Kevin gave me a book called Heavy Duty by one of the Meltzer brothers on their concept of training. To this day, I basically kind of use a lot of those same principles. So Kevin was a mentor to me in the gym as far as working out. He, along with obviously Scott, we're going to talk about, obviously Sean too, but they mentored me so many ways on we'll call it the WWF way of things during the time. So fast forward to, I think this is 06, 07 when we're transitioning from the weekly pay-per-views to monthlies.
September 04.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow, that's okay. So fast forward 04. That's man. Okay. September of 04, we're doing the transition. And yes, Conrad, we and collectively I was leading the charge, definitely thought that we wanted as much star power as possible. We were on Fox Sports Net, and we knew the challenges of the time slot. Friday afternoon at 3:00, 4 Eastern. So Fridays at 4 Eastern on Fox Sports Net. We knew that was challenging. And I remember having the conversations to Dixie, to Bob Carter, to my father. And I always kind of led those conversations when talking about Kevin, in that you know, and this is another thing, Conrad. Maybe I'd love a little feedback on this. When you think of the NWO, and that is a super positive thing, but it also, the NWO was bigger than Kevin, bigger than Scott, bigger than Hulk. When it got hot, it super shattered. But do you really look at Kevin as a WWF guy or a WCW guy? No, I think you look at him as I think the NWO transcended that, and we all know the legends of the T-shirts everywhere, and there for a period of time they were bigger than the business. And I think Stone Cold and Austin 316 had transcended. It got into just so much more than water cooler talk. But in having those conversations with people internally, that was how a lot of it that I led. I'm like, hey man, at the end of the day, you take any one of the three, and I believe this. I think if you took Hogan out of that, it wouldn't be the same. I can say the exact same thing. If you took Scott out, Kevin out of that, because those guys jumping from the WWF to WCW were, not to rehash the story, but it was the North invading the South. It was the Yankees invading the Red Sox, the Lakers and Celtics, and whatever rivalry you want to call. But that positioning of them in the business to this day, Conrad, up until I left that company, but you probably have at least a little more access than I do. But I know what the NWO merchandise sales do to this day, and they're the very, very top. And Kevin, again, the foundation of that. And so going into that first monthly pay-per-view and knew we were going to be doing it every month, I wanted a Kevin Nash. And I know in the history of TNA, we talk about Sting and the licensing and the brand awareness and the international component that he brought. We talk about Kurt Angle when we got him. But getting Scott and Kevin in these early days, as far as name recognition, was a big deal. And that's exactly how, when I had those internal talks with Bob Carter and my father and Dixie, to a lesser degree during this time, it was important. And that's how I viewed it.
Yeah, I view him as a WCW guy. I know that most people listening to this would argue against that and say, oh, no, he first got hot into the WWF. I get that, but not a lot of people were watching. But when he jumped ship and started the NWO, one of the foundation members there, that's really what set the business on fire, and I think carried him. People used to sort of throw dirt on Kevin's name and say, oh, he's the worst drawing champion of all time. Oh yeah, how'd he draw in WCW? Pretty good. The business and the creative and the entire industry was down when he was champ in 1994 and 1995. But when it's up, he's there at the tippy top. So I don't think maybe history has been fair to him in that regard. But I do view him, for better or worse, as a WCW guy. And I think most people do, which is why when you started to use the term outsiders on your television promos, of course, the buzz starts to come around. Just to give context too, here in 2004, this is before you have the big television contract. Yes, you have the Fox Sports Net deal, but that's like in the middle of the freaking afternoon. And there's discussion that, hey, maybe we're going to try to buy prime time or late night spots on the weekend, but we're still trying to make this a viable company, make this a solvent company. And we're not quite there yet. And there's lots of rumor and innuendo that, hey, unless they raid WWE or land someone like Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that doesn't seem possible. But Hulk Hogan is not on the docket. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash are. And Wade Keller would write this: Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and maybe even Sean Waltman arriving in TNA can create a buzz, but beyond that, what can they do? In the ring, maybe not much, but they could still have plenty of positive impact if they're up for it. If we've learned one thing about Hall and Nash over the past few years, it's that together they mean much more than they do separately. There's something about those two when they're together that disappears completely when working alone. They play well off of working with each other. The problem is, neither are in wrestling shape anymore. Their in-ring careers are, for all intents and purposes, over. However, if they have Waltman with them and he gets himself in ring shape on some indie shows beforehand, he can be the member of the trio who handles the bumping. If Jeff Jarrett wrestles Jeff Hardy in a rematch in November, that would mean Hall, Nash, and Waltman could initially get involved with the 3 Live crew, which is Conan, BG James, and Ron Killings. There is a good connection with Waltman and James due to their days in DX together. There's a connection with Conan since he was in the NWO with Hall, Nash, and Waltman. They could work 6-man tags at the pay-per-view, and the stip being that one scores a pinfall and gets an NWA title match, and the loser of the pinfall can never wrestle for the world title. Waltman could work the entirety of the match, et cetera, et cetera. So there's lots of fantasy booking of, hey, if they're going to bring them in, here's how it could work. And there was a lot of chatter. And if we know anything about Jeff Jarrett, it's that he loves when there's a lot of chatter. Why were Kevin Nash and Scott Hall some of the first phone calls you made, and how receptive were they?
Well, I mean, look, that's why I wanted to kind of lead off, is that we had a personal relationship. We were buddies, and I'd worked with him in WWF as Diesel and Razor. I worked him in WCW, the whole, whatever you want to call it, the Millionaires Club, until it went out of business. We were there, and again, we were buddies, and now here comes an opportunity. Scott lived half hour, Kevin under an hour, maybe 45 minutes. They were close to Orlando. It's not like I was asking them to get on a plane and fly halfway across the country and work 30-minute matches. I wanted them to be a part of the product. And, look, they're both businessmen. They got paid under their market value, but they wanted to get paid. But they also, during this time frame, that's why I want to kind of be specific. As time went on, especially Kevin, it became much more, okay, I'm committing. I'm going to get paid. Hey, Jeff, I understand, and you understand that you don't have to buy a plane ticket, and you don't even have to buy a hotel room. So that alone, comparatively speaking to all the talent here, I'm a first class ticket. So just right out of the gate, my market value works. And so anyway, they were coming to help a buddy during these early days, and those guys are, what, Conrad, 4 years removed from being the biggest box office, or a part of the biggest box office attractions in the entire business. So hell yeah, I want them to be a part of the company, and knew with I'll call it our core, America's Most Wanted, Team Canada, AJ, Chris Daniels, the low keys of the world, Samoa Joe wasn't there yet, but we had a nucleus of talent that we needed some box office attractions, and I'll call it quote unquote from the WCW era, because we're only 3 years removed from that, to help us create brand awareness. And they did. They absolutely did. The folks at Fox Sports, when I'm having those conversations, and no disrespect to our current roster at the time, they just didn't know anybody. Did they know a Jeff Hardy? Oh God, yeah. He was just on this TV, and those guys knew. We're going to get into some conversations about the best damn sports show, period. Their producers just obviously knew who Kevin Nash and Scott Hall were. So that's just comes part of building any brand. You got to bring some brand with you to build your own brand, and that's where we were at. That's where we were at in 2004.
The Torch actually ran an online poll saying, hey, which match are you looking forward to seeing the most at Victory Road? And of course, at this point, it's not even announced, but that 6-man with these guys blew away all other matches, including you and Jeff Hardy. So the star power is there. And of course, Meltzer is sort of maybe not so bullish on the idea, thinking that hey, this is not going to work, and almost suggesting in a way that, hey, perhaps these guys are available for a reason. Maybe they're tough to do business with, or they're not a good fit, or the business has passed them by, or whatever. But there's still a lot of buzz. And so that's what you're looking for as a promoter. And I think sometimes people forget about that. I know that your dad is a old school promoter and you're a promoter. So we're constantly looking to, how do we garner more attention? How do we create that chatter? How do we create that buzz? Just throwing their name around creates that chatter, not just amongst fans, not just in the newsletters, but even in the locker room. And the Torch had a report that said that the locker room was actually excited. Now, once upon a time, when we heard that, hey, these guys may be coming into the WWE back in 2002, well, maybe that was met with a little bit of folded arms and a little bit of pushback of, oh, I don't know about that. But here, people seem to be motivated. And maybe it's because it's a shakeup and it feels different than just Dutch and Jeff. Do you remember hearing any sort of pushback, or what was the feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, you got from the boys about Hall and Nash potentially coming in?
There was, look, it's not like I was completely, and it, thank God, even in these early days of me being a businessman, if you will, or, I'll say this, Kevin knew when we hired him, I was the single largest shareholder of the company. That fundamentally changed our relationship, but not to the negative. It's like, okay, Jeff's kind of got his ass on the line here. How can I help a buddy, if you will? On the flip side of that, Kevin was well aware, because he had been in the business, and growing up in the locker rooms and hearing different folks, and you hear those stories, and this story kind of ran through my brain as looking at the research, is that, and people have asked me, matter of fact, Brian Danielson asked me this a couple of months ago. He says, can you kind of elaborate on that theory that your dad would book 6 months and then Lawler would book 6 months approximately, and they would kind of trade off the book? He goes, that's fascinating to me. He said, what is that? I said, well, that's just, trying to kind of be counter, getting in front of burnout, and just their relationship and their cadence and all that kind of stuff. And then one time, I told him this, and it's also true. And I said this because I heard my father say this. There comes a time in every wrestling promotion or relationship when the guy who's got the pencil, got the book, making all the decisions, there comes a time when no matter what decision they make, it's easy to go blame, that sucked, that's horrible. Again, if something is great on a television show, the talent gets the credit. If something is terrible, bad creative, for the most part. Yeah. And so I knew that no matter what decisions, now we're 2 years into 2.5 years into the company, I knew that people were getting aggravated at me because I'm a talent. I'm an executive. I'm running creative. Go all the way down the line, and it's so easy to forget. Oh no, wait a minute. Jeff's money's on the line here. I kind of think wants his money back more than he wants a little fame or glory. Kevin got that from the beginning. Literally from the beginning. So them coming in was, to the talent, oh, this is fresh air. Them saying, oh, Kev's and Scott, they're going to replace Dutch and Jeff. People really thought that. I think for the most part, they thought, well, they ain't going to put up with Jeff's crap because I had the quote unquote Booker heat. It just happens. No matter, look, when Vince McMahon, how many times did people just despise him? Even back in the day, it just comes. That's what happens with that job.
Jeff, as a promoter, just a sidebar, just fun question from Conrad from Huntsville. As a promoter, now I'm asking as a promoter, would you consider your best talent the one that draws the most money, or the one that has the best matches? I'm just asking. I'm just trying to understand.
I think Dave from South San Antonio put you up to this question.
No, I got eat up last week on Twitter. Eat up.
No, you didn't. Oh, yeah. How did I miss this? Because you
Dude,
know
it's got 1 million impressions right now, I think. Where I said, "Hey guys, there's a lot of talk these days about who the best in the world is. This ain't baseball. There aren't objective stats like stolen bases and hits and home runs. The only objective stat we have in wrestling is revenue created. So the best wrestler in the world is the one who creates the most revenue." Now, that said, from a business perspective, and of course, I got hit over the head with, what about art? Art is not objective. Art's subjective. But I'm wondering, as a promoter, are the dollars subjective? Would you rather have great matches or would you rather have great revenue? I'm just curious.
you're just curious. Well, you're asking me what time it is. Let me tell you how to build a watch.
Yes, sir.
Conrad, I said just a few minutes ago, it's funny how things evolve. And I'll just say, as time goes on, Kevin Sullivan came from a generation like my father. Handsome Jimmy Valiant sold out building after building after building.
So did Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I was going to say on and on and on. And I don't think there was ever one promoter when Hulk came through the curtain said, "Dadgum Hulk, your punches were really bad tonight." I mean, you know, yes, I get all that, but I missed that whole Twitter beef. You know, I heard.
No, I'm just curious. I'd like for you to go on the record. If you were a promoter, would you rather have a guy who puts on the best matches or the guy who draws the? He's going to have the best match or he's going to have the best gate.
I can go. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to tell you how to build a watch. I'm going to tell you what time it is. I can go downtown Nashville right now and find. I'm not kidding you. The best guitar player or one of the best in the world, drummer, bass, rhythm, all of them. And they'll all tell you, every one of them, that everybody that Taylor Swift has on tour with them, they're better than them. And they can find a lead singer that's playing Tootsies or the stage or wherever it is. They're going to be a better singer than Taylor. But at the end of the day, who is the best, not country, who is the best musical artist in the world today? There's not even a close second.
It's Taylor Swift.
It's Otete. She is. Yeah. So, Conrad, to be very succinct, I want the man who creates, or woman who creates, the most revenue. That is the best wrestler.
Said differently, to me, it becomes a popularity contest. Taylor's the most popular musician. Therefore, more people are willing to go see her do that thing. And I would even go out on a limb and suggest, if you're the best in the world at what you do, but no one comes to see you, maybe you ain't so good. Because if you were good, people might actually vote with their wallets and pay to see you. And I know that hurts feelings. I'm not saying I don't love their art. Taylor Swift's not my favorite artist. I don't have one Taylor Swift song on my iPhone. Not one. Well, I'd have one, and it's Jeff Jarrett, because Tony Khan's a coward. But outside of that, that's it. But even I have to acknowledge, and of course, a bunch of smartasses said, well, Avatar is the best movie of all time. Correct. It is the most commercially successful. Now, if we're going to say wrestling as an art form, okay, that's tomato, but we'll never agree. My favorite wrestler won't be your favorite wrestler. Therefore, it's subjective. But if we're going to use an objective metric here, we can do that in baseball. Like if somebody says, well, Peyton Manning's the best quarterback in football history, the best of all time, there are at least stats to support or argue against that. But we don't really have that in wrestling outside of quarter-hour ratings, merch sales, gate records. That's all we've got. Those are the only objective metrics. It can't just be, well, this guy gave it 5 stars and that guy gave it 5 stars, so therefore it's the best. Those are two dudes' opinion. What do the masses say? And the masses vote with their wallet, in my opinion.
Well said. And here's where it gets. I saw something on Twitter this weekend. Why isn't professional wrestling in the Olympics? Because gymnastics is art. They got
breakdancing is.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I kind of like. I'd love to go to the Olympics and compete for a gold medal, because that's what it's turned into. But here, even another layer down, Conrad, in that, is it the singer or the songwriter?
Right.
Austin, take McMahon out of his story. No disrespect to Stone Cold and all the merch sales. I'm not sure he could have had the success he had without the evil character of Mr. McMahon, who I will say had been built on TV since WrestleMania 1. It didn't just happen in the Survivor Series.
Yes.
He that character had been built and been built and been built and been built. Everybody knew he's the boss. It was still look back on that story. It's fascinating. The other thing, as Conrad, the more episodes we do this, and you're probably way down that line, and you touched on it just a second ago to bring it back to Kev, is that, hey, Diesel didn't draw this, that, blah, blah, blah.
5 moves of doom. He only had 5, 6 if you count the hair flip.
Well,
All
guess
that
what?
bullshit.
The steroid era, or the golden era, the steroid era, if you took out, we'll call it the new generation era, you're not jumping from the steroid era to attitude era. You're
That's
just
right.
not. I look at the we'll call it the TNA days, where the industry was at, coming off of the attitude era and the competition failing and the TV climate and the pay-per-view climate and the technology, pre-social media, then early social media. Not saying we picked it, life dealt us that hand, but the early days of TNA was a downtime in this industry. And so a lot of the negative connotations, I think, that go, specifically kind of this whole episode we're going to talk about. It was not the easiest times for TNA, but man, the building blocks of just kind of growing the brand. But it's fun to reminisce. But I'm saying, your point was best wrestler, best matches. And man, so many things that go into that best wrestler. The creative, the timing, the platform, the opponents. Healthy discussion, pal.
Well, let's talk about something that Dave Meltzer wrote back then. This is 2004. Whenever Nash's name has come up about coming in, as it has several times, while it's a move you can understand them making because they need the star power, it carries a great risk to Jeff Jarrett. The feeling has been among many in the company that Jarrett has tried to keep those with more star power than him out, unless it's people to work specifically with him for a short period as opposed to being regular weeklies, like Sting or plans for Hogan and Savage. Nash is a political animal, and in the long run, since things aren't going to draw just because of the state of the industry right now, people will point fingers, and eventually Nash's finger will point at Jarrett. We'll see if Nash gets his own one-finger touch deal. I find that laugh out loud hilarious. I'm a big Dave fan and supporter. I'm a subscriber to the Observer and will be forever and ever am. I love his opinion. But this is way wrong. How in the world? I mean, would it make sense for a guy who is going to directly profit or not? Like, I'm going to be a big star on my own show that loses money and bankrupts my ass, or I can be a part of an ensemble cast that makes a bunch of money. It's a no-brainer.
But even a guy like Dave, who maybe give him the benefit of the doubt, he didn't know, and I think some people kind of lost sight that they didn't really look in their mind and go, okay, it went from Hell South. I assume Hell South was we'll call it the majority partner. They weren't. They were minority. It was, I had the most stock, then my dad, then Hell South. They went away. Panda came in. Oh, so Panda's running the show. Well, it did move me in a minority position, but Panda Energy International was owned by a private, yes, big organization. I think over 400 shareholders. Bob ran that show, but Bob answered to about 400 people. So the logic of what you just laid out, Jeff's going to play in his sandbox at the cost of not only his own money and his father's money, and at that time, Hell South payables on the books, and then the Carter family And then Carter family's all their shareholders. Yeah, it makes sense. Jeff's not going to let any top stars in. It was ludicrous. In Dave's defense, he had to, at this point, I believe his business model would have been selling subscriptions. Would that be right, Conrad? Yeah. So he had to sell sheets. I get it. Word count, he had to get it up, and he's had to write some stuff that goes, you know what? I got to read what's in the Observer this week. Wonder if Jarrett's still playing favorites with Mantell, or if he's moved over to Hall and Nash, or whatever the story may be for the week.
Well, the story of the week in the torch is Jeff Jarrett is temporarily turning over the booking duties to Dutch Mantell and Jeremy Borash. Jarrett's going to take time away from the management side of the business to tend to a family illness matter. He still plans to wrestle and still work in a management capacity at the weekly tapings and the November 7th pay-per-view. But he's going to stay away from the creative and management end as much as possible. Of course, we know what that family health issue is. It's your now deceased wife, Jill. Her cancer has reared its ugly head, and it's not going to be a good scene. And I think that gets lost too. Like the same people who are saying, "Oh, Jeff just wants to make himself a star." Buddy, he's trying to keep a roof over the outfit here, the household, and pay the bills and take care of a sick wife. And, he's got a whole closet full of those titles that he's won, but those aren't really taking care of family pressing matters today. So I just think context is king. I also want to mention that it comes out that Sean Waltman is telling people that he's going to TNA with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. But then a few weeks later, Dave reports Waltman is not coming in at this point. It's said here by Dave, Jarrett didn't want him in. Although the two were friends from the WWE days, there were a lot of bad feelings towards the time Waltman and Lauer were either going to appear and didn't. Waltman has obviously had major drug problems between the drug issues and his relationship with Lauer, who we know is China. So much of the problems are his fault, but some aren't. As Waltman felt deceived, and this is one thing that's clear both Jarretts have never come to grips with regarding people who they thought were their friends, who were lied to constantly in regard to Vince Russo being part of the company and then not understanding why they weren't being trusted. Hall is said to be unhappy in particular, since it's not like Hall and Nash are going to have good matches on their own. At least he has someone who would carry them. So this is what's written in the Observer. Was it always just about Hall and Nash? Was it once about all three, including Waltman? Were there hurt feelings with Waltman? And was Scott upset that maybe that decision had changed? Clarify the rumor and innuendo here.
And look, the different time frames. But to my knowledge, and I'm speaking, I don't want to talk to my dad, but not me or my father. Did we ever have, we'll call it, quote unquote, hard feelings over the China situation? We were well aware of the realities of the situation. If I remember correctly, it was this simple in that Sean wasn't really up to working, I'll call it all the time. And B, he knew the realities. LA based is a lot different than Apopka based. And I say Apopka, that's a suburb. That's where Scott lived. It's a flight and a hotel. And as we get into the contract, I don't know if you mentioned that the first Hall and Nash deal was minimal dates, 8, 6, 8, 10 dates. It was kind of a wait and see. And I think the original conversations, because we're going to get into Randy Savage discussion, is, hey, let's do this 6-man and see how things work out. It wasn't a kid in, kid out. That wasn't the conversation. And of course, we knew, and I say we collectively, TNA Creative, is that, yeah, it would be good because kid can help them in we'll call it 6-man situations. But Hall and Nash as the team was what we were interested in from the get-go, from the beginning. See how things went. And Kid knew this.
We got to talk a little bit about the rumor and innuendo about what's going on sort of off camera. You guys are referring to the outsiders, not the outsiders, but there were outsiders who were looking to come into the company, but not capital THE, capital O and outsiders. That's a silly point, but worth distinguishing because the WWE actually has the trademark for the outsiders. And it's written in the Observer that Scott Hall and Kevin Nash had not signed yet. Now they've already worked out the money, so it's not a money issue. Was it creative they were trying? I mean, Jim Ross always says it always comes down to the two C's, cash and creative. If you've checked the cash box, what's the creative box?
And I think this is just episodic newsletter writing, if you will. I don't recall any holdups. Again, this is startup mentality of, all right, you guys have agreed. Let me work on some creative processes and things and build some things. I don't think it was Conrad. I don't think it was anything to note. It's okay. We agreed on money. We'll figure this out on when they're going to start, what taping. And again, what are we, a year into the Universal relationship? Maybe not even that far. And those early days, our schedule, getting that in marketing. I mean, there was our dates were moving targets probably for I'd say first year, maybe not that long, but I know about this during this time frame, it felt like we didn't know exactly when we were going to be there.
We should also talk about the rumor and innuendo from the movie set. I just want to give everybody the lay of the land here. They're all working together on the movie The Longest Yard. Talking about Bill Goldberg, Steve Austin, and Kevin Nash. Allegedly, Goldberg's keeping to himself, but Steve Austin and Kevin Nash are pretty good friends. This is at least what's written about in The Observer, and it said the Goldberg-Austin breakup was over Austin opening up talks with WWE to return. Remember, this is 2004, so this is a few months removed from WrestleMania 20. Nash's feeling is that Goldberg still thinks it's 1998, and he's still the same level star that he was. Neither Nash nor Hall had signed a TNA contract as of last week. Austin, who hates the Jarretts and thinks TNA is crap, asked Nash why he'd even bother going there. Nash told Austin he hadn't signed, and Austin told him it's time to call Vince, figuring under the circumstances, he could get a $250,000 per year deal as a writing consultant if he screwed Jarrett, who would only have himself to blame for not signing him and advertising his name first. They figured that Vince hates Jeff Jarrett for holding him up for almost $200,000 to do a job to China on his final night in the company. So this would kind of be Vince's revenge. Don't know where it went from there. Did you ever hear this story?
When I read it in the research, but
but I'm just saying, like, I'm not picking on Dave here. I'm not trying to, but I'm wondering how many people could have possibly heard Austin say that. If Austin said it to Nash, who picked up the phone and called Dave? I don't think it was Austin. I don't think it was Nash. That feels way out of left field to me. Like, how would that story even be retold if it were true?
So, and I don't know the time frame, but we can just kind of do our hypothetically speaking. It would not surprise me in the least if all of a sudden we get done recording, it comes out, and then Kevin calls you, Conrad, and says, "Oh man, we were at the ale house talking and blah, 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 blah." And I told this funny story, and it just was, I'll call it bar talk. And Kevin is a hell of a storyteller. And if Kevin didn't say this, and as we both know, there are young guys in the business that want to be a source, that want to, give stuff and tell one wrestler to another wrestler to another wrestler. And Dave might have heard loose ends of this and tried to connect the dots and said, okay, I'm going to report this. I mean, like you said, I don't see Steve or Kevin picking up the phone. Hey, Dave, this is it. But it started somewhere. You know what I mean? And again, Dave's put a lot of work into this industry, but when you see things and go back now, this is 2004. So now what are we, 2024? Go back 20 years ago, you go, man, that is some seriously fabricated stuff. Just nonsense.
Well, I'll tell you what's not nonsense. And that's our friend at Mando.
Oh,
man, if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? We want you to try Mando. It's the real deal. Jeff Jarrett tells you that he packs it on every single trip. You can simplify your travel with Mando's 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar. It's a 5-ounce bar that does the work of shampoo, face wash, body wash, and deodorant. You can even use it to create a rich shaving lather. So technically, it's 5-in-1. And by the way, it's clinically proven to control odor for 24 hours. Mando's 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar is formulated with a gentle alpha hydroxy acid that stops odor right at the source. You see, regular soap doesn't do that because your pH is too high. And this simplifies your hygiene routine. It's the only thing you really need to pack. You can get it in 3 different cologne quality scents too. Mount Fuji is like fresh and woodsy. Bourbon Leather is sweet and sophisticated. And Pro Sport is clean and citrusy. But I'm telling you, if you're looking to make life a little easier, especially if you're a road warrior like our man Double J is, it doesn't get any easier than this 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar from Mando. And I want you to check it out. We got a special offer for you right now where new customers can get $5 off Mando's best-selling starter pack with the code MyWorld at shopmando.com. I'm a big believer in this. We've been using Mando products here in the household for a while. The whole body deodorant is the real deal. And when they say whole body, they mean everywhere. Jeff Jarrett FaceTimed me the other day when he was putting it on his Grundle. Thankfully, the camera was pointed in the right direction, but it can do everything, including Dave Silva's stinky crevices, even his smelly ass feet. This was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was just being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Mando, by the way, is American made, and it's powerful enough for the toughest body odor. It can even tackle Dave Silva and his family jewels. It's also safe, though. It's aluminum free. It's baking soda free. It's cruelty free. It's dye free. It's vegan. And we want you to be stink free. It's been clinically proven to control odor more than just like a shower with soap alone. It turns out 12 hours after a shower, the average man's Grundle odor level is a 5 out of 10. But with Mando, well, the average Grundle odor is a 0 out of 10. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with this solid stick deodorant, the cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash and the deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Again, we got a discount code here for you hooked up to get your favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack when you use our exclusive code. That's like 40% off your starter pack. Use the code MyWorld at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Dude, between this all-in-one cleansing bar and the starter pack, Mando's hooking the dudes up and making life easy.
Codes, my man, is he's a big Mando user, and his Mount Fuji, I don't know if you caught that. You know, there's a Mount Fuji in there. His Mount Fuji. But Connie, I just had to do this. Grundle, straight out of our Google machine, as some folks call it. Do you know what the definition of Grundle?
I can't wait to hear.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm glad you're sitting down. Hey, Waffle Stomping Silver, are you sitting down? Yep, he's sitting down.
Yep, I'm sitting.
Okay. Grundle is a vulgar British slang term for the perineum. Can't say that. The area between the anus and genitalia. In American slang, the perineum is also known as the taint or gooch.
I knew that, and I was hoping you were going to explain why it's called the taint.
Shopmando.com. $5 off your starter pack. Code MyWorld.
shopmando.com, and that promo code is MyWorld. Because it tain't balls and it tain't asshole. It's just in between. Speaking of assholes, we got to talk about these assholes that you brought into TNA.
What a segue.
Of course, they're not. We love Scott Hall and Kevin Nash on the show, and they're both officially signed and confirmed now for November 7th, Victory Road. And Scott Hall shows up on the October 22nd show. And Dave would write that he looked old and in bad shape, not like drugs or alcohol, but like maybe not physically fit. So he's wearing a loose-fitting Hawaiian shirt. And the following week, on the 29th, we would see a pre-taped interview with Kevin Nash that he filmed as a part of his taping at the Longest Yard filming shoot. when you finally get this thing done, we've landed it. They're on paper. We got a taped interview for one. The other's here in person. Maybe he's not wearing his old Razor gear and he's in a Hawaiian shirt, but we got him. Did you feel like this is what we needed? This is the shot in the arm for the pay-per-view? Or did it feel like a bigger opportunity than just this pay-per-view push in a few months after?
Well, and I'm glad you kind of, both of them gray-headed. My old man pulled me aside. And I don't know if it was specific. It had to have been. Scott and my father had I don't say unique. They had a tight relationship. They cared for each other. They talked off and on, every year, all the time. That they had a cool, unique relationship. Scott was dealing with his sobriety issues, and he was doing well at this time, but he had quite a bit of gray hair. Kevin coming off the movie shoot. My old man, like a lot of that generation's promoters, just had the kind of mindset of, man, you may not be able to go back and recreate the magic, but like, gosh, the story I was going to tell, Fargo, Jackie Fargo would, come in from time to time after he was long gone from full time. But I've heard my old man on the phone, Jackie, you going to look right when you come in here? And that was, how's your hair going to look? You're going to have a tan. And Jackie drew money until he passed away. But he always kind of, when he came in, he had the look of the fabulous Jackie Fargo. And my dad pulled me aside and says, hey, man, is there anything? And I'm like, Kevin's in the movies. And because physically, it kind of alluded to, they didn't look too good. At least Scott, he looked fine. He just was at that stage of his career mentally. He was done physically wrestling. He just was not interested in doing it. But having their name attached, and I wanted it to get them around the product and try to engage them where, for lack of a better word, they would get back in the game. As opposed to coming helping a buddy out. Hey, let's get engaged in the product. It slowly happened. And there were different stories with each guy. But, Kev eventually really got engaged, and we'll get into that as the episode goes along. But, yeah, that was the mindset. I wanted them to taste. They wanted to come in. They wanted to taste a little bit of what we were about, and then try to grow it into a bigger relationship.
Let's talk about Victory Road. It's written in the Observer that your match with Jeff Hardy was Jeff Hardy's best match in years. And that the finish of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash's match made sure that everyone knew they did not take the match seriously at all. And it's written, Nash delivered this terrible promo where there was a lame beatdown where three heels beat up and laid out five baby faces, showing nobody has learned anything in 5 years, as they made their own tag champs and top full-time babyface, AJ Styles, look totally impotent as they were all overpowered in seconds, even though it was the heels who had the odds stacked against them. It was one thing to get the heat on Hardy and maybe even Styles, but it looked so bad with Styles since they're in the next month's main event. But 3OK being laid out just gave the long-term audience the idea that the top guys we've been watching are really minor leaguers and they're not even worth being in the ring with real stars. And the show ended with a mystery man getting out of a limo, and Randy Savage appeared and told fans he'd be on TV this coming Friday. Okay, so listen, we get to look back at this now with the benefit of hindsight. And with the benefit of hindsight, would you have done the same creative or would you have tweaked it?
That's playing armchair quarterback. Maybe not exactly the same, but to me, this goes into probably a much deeper philosophical question, in that long-term storytelling does not exist without heat, leaving the baby faces down. And for the most part, whether it's Keller or Meltzer or writers, critics, leaving a scenario where we'll call it three guys beat up 5 guys on paper sounds bad, doesn't read well, but in reality, if you kind of stair step it up and roll it down from an episodics nature, and the heels are using weapons or cheap shots or however it may be, when you watch it, you go, oh, okay, this makes sense. When you read it, you go, what? Hall and Nash and Jarrett beat up 3 Live Crew, AJ, blah, blah, blah. You know, it just doesn't sit well. So I in a lot of ways, Conrad, I think in today's fast-paced world, the art of babyface selling for the long term sometimes gets lost. And that to me is, gosh, there's so many old sayings you could say. If you don't build the dragon slayers have nothing to slay. I know that sounds so old school and antiquated, but
No, Kevin Sullivan said the exact same thing about Cody Rhodes, that, you know, he had to lose to Roman because he had to go slay some dragons. Like, Cody had not overcame enough. He had not achieved enough. And we both agreed that Cody should have won this year, and he did. But as in regards to last year, he thought they nailed it because it would have been too soon for Cody. We needed him to earn it as fans. And you use the same phrase that he did, Dragon Slayers. So let's talk about something else that was in the torch, because I've always found this fascinating. Now, this is BS Jeff Jarrett, before sobriety Jeff Jarrett. And I've heard that after the shows, once upon a time, there might be several cases of beer in Jeff Jarrett's room. And it might not be a regular room. It might be a hotel suite, so we can fellowship. And we might even call it Club Jarrett. and that it would be a big party that would go for hours and hours and hours, with guys just laughing and carrying on and rebooking the territory and telling tall tales. And Kevin Nash is knee deep with you after this pay-per-view debut at Victory Road. Now, Scott Hall's not there. He's clean and sober, and he's back with his ex Dana at the time, and she's not going to put up with his partying. So he's being a good boy. But you and Kevin are holding court. And allegedly, Kevin says something in there that gets repeated to the newsletters. Scott Hall and I are here to stick it up Vince's ass. And yes, me and Scott and Kevin and Jeff are going to make a bunch of money, but there'll be plenty left over for everybody else. Talk to me about, you know, Club Jarrett, and then introducing all the rest of the locker room, the guys who wanted to a different side of Kevin Nash, the social, fun, jovial Kevin Nash, not necessarily the work Kevin Nash.
Oh, I don't know where to start. I mean, look, it goes without saying, a lot of fun. We stayed right across from Universal Studios at a DoubleTree, North Tower and the South Tower. Go up to the 17th floor, and when you get off the elevator, there would be a double room and then a huge presidential suite, executive suite that had we'll call it like a big dining room table that seated 8, and then it had 3 couches for a big TV area and then a bar area. Anyway, it was a big space, and I stayed on one side in one double room, and then the big working area, because we did, Conrad, contrary to popular belief, when we're down there 3 days at a time or 4 days at a time, that's where we would have creative meetings and postmortem. And that's how it later became called Club Jarrett, but that's how we did things in that we would finish the tapings lots of nights. I'd say, all right, everybody go get something to eat. Let's meet at 10 or 10:30 or 11. And Rudy Charles stayed in the other double room on the other side. But that's how it kind of started, that, hey, let's go back, and there's an injury, or we got a time to show, or something's off, because we're going right back to work in Orlando the following day. And so pay-per-view and 2 sets of tapings, we would go there and hang out, and we would do work and talk through things. And then it started to, and I don't know if Kevin started this, probably, but no, we would, Kevin say, hey man, I'm going to drop by. And he'd knock on the door and have a case under his arm. All right, come on in. But then other talent would come by, and we would talk shop. And, from the day I got in this business, it was always really taught to me. There's so much you can learn. You kind of got to, it's like, in any line of business, let's get in a room and talk about it. And you're going to hear different opinions and different thoughts and different reasonings why, but also you get to know one another. And look, riding forward to a car, you get to really know somebody if you're in a car with them 3 or 4 hours at a time one way and 3 or 4 hours in a car the other way. And then you do that multiple trips, God forbid, multiple weeks. That's how you really, really form friendships, but you also learn so much. And so the professor Mike Tenay would be there, Rudy Charles, the creative process, Abyss, JB, all the different folks, we would be there. And it started out kind of as a work session. And Kevin to this day, loves to talk wrestling. And again, I'm going to say you can really learn a lot for a young guy that get in a room and start listening, but more importantly, start asking questions. And that's how, again, it later became known as Club Jarrett, but in the early days it was the creative room. But lots of fun, Conrad. If we would have known each other back in that day, I don't know if I'd got any work done with you around, but we did. We did get a lot of work done, but we also had a lot of fun.
Last year, Cassio asked Brian James, the road dog, as we like to know him in WWE parlance. He said, "Hey, Brian, back in the day before you and Jeff were sober, what would it have been like if me and you and Conrad and Jeff all hung out?" And Brian immediately said, "Oh, we'd all be dead. We'd be dead. Sure. We wouldn't be here. We'd be dead." We would have had fun though, but yeah, that would have burned out. So listen, let's talk about the results. Victory Road does 30,000 pay-per-views, just over. So that's the most successful pay-per-view that TNA has ever done. When those numbers come in, yes, it's awesome that it's a record, but I'm curious, were you still disappointed in the number, knowing the investment that you had in Hall, Nash, and Randy Savage?
The investment wasn't astronomical. And that's the thing that I think I can't, maybe this is being a little dramatic, but I think one of the biggest things that I get it, you wouldn't know this. I mean, Conrad, you wouldn't have known it until me and you really became great friends, and the podcast and story after story after story. The Carters managed, and I'll say Panda, we didn't get out over our skis crazy. So, Hall and Nash and whatever other talent, it's not like it wasn't till the Hulk Hogan hire that jumped the shark or got way out over the skis. But again, when the hiring went down, I defend that in that the Carters knew that, okay, we'd been making good to great money and they were getting their investment back. So it wasn't even as big a gamble then as it turned out to be, because the scales flipped. The money went up and the profits went down. But in these days, a payoff to Hall, Nash, and maybe Savage and whoever else in there, it wasn't a monumental risk. And when we looked at our P&L and the cash flow per month, that in the impact zone, if you will, and 30,000 buys, and however that math turns out, 30,000 times, probably in those days, it was a $34 or $39 buy roughly. So take half of that times 30, that our lights were already hung. Our sound was already in place, the ring and the production. All we paid for was essentially labor. And when you take that labor cost, but then have that profit, the studio format for creating content, and I mean all content, you can't I'm saying the TV show and the pay-per-view and the shoulder, that if you kind of look at that model, it was a fantastic shot in the arm. Like, okay, this is the direction we're going to head. These monthlies, because again, a weekly pay-per-view at $10, you're getting $4 a buy. You're getting much more than that, do it once a month. And so just the red ink, black ink situation is just different in a positive way.
we got to mention that around this same time, the company goes into cost cutting mode. And this is an interesting time because we're in cost cutting mode, but we're seeing new talents come in. And at the same time, those new talents have more people showing up to the tapings. It said here that over 850 fans showed up, including so many you had to turn them away, which is a lot more than normal. Maybe word's gotten out that Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Roddy Piper, and now maybe Randy Savage are going to be there. And the tickets are doggone free. There's a little bit of heartburn about guys who are being paid per date rather than per show. So if we're taping multiple matches or segments in a day, then you just get paid the day rate. And then people are thinking incorrectly, as you said, that what Kevin Nash is just making a king's ransom here, but that's just not the reality. All right, let's run a timeout right now and talk about our friends at Veya. I'm such a big believer in this. My wife is absolutely obsessed. Veya is a hemp company, boys and girls, and it is a game changer at the Thompson household. Maybe you've got some of those summertime sadness creeping in. Maybe the heat is impacting your focus. Well, if you're looking to embrace life with your hands on the wheel, but maybe you need a little levity, well, enhance your everyday with Veya. What I really believe in is the idea that they have 0 THC products. So maybe THC isn't for you, but you can still take advantage of their CBD line. And that's what my wife really enjoys. She enjoys the products that help her sleep. Before she started using Veya, man, she was struggling. She was getting like 5 hours at best. She's getting 7 hours now, and she gives a lot of that credit to the CBD that also has CBN. That's right. You got everything you need here with Veya. And their products range from 0 to 100 milligrams of THC. So these guys have you covered, whether you're looking to microdose or enjoy more potent effects. My wife, though, she's a 0 girl. THC is not for her. But if it is for you, man, you can try it with 2 milligrams, 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, 50 milligrams, all the way up to 100 milligrams. They've got something for everybody. But what I really enjoy most is they make the packaging easy to understand. My wife has been overwhelmed before by the alphabet soup of CBD and CBG and what's Delta 8 and what's Delta 9 and what do all these words mean? Man, they just make it so easy. They sent us a care package because we've got all of our products and sponsors before we actually talk about them here on the program. And man, I got to encourage you, just go check it out for yourself. We've got the link for the product in our description. So if you're 21 or over, check out the link for Veya in our description and use the code MyWorld. You'll get 15% off. And once you make your purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Enhance your everyday with Veya. But you're going to see that it's made in the USA. It's farmed and crafted right here in the United States. They've got award-winning, top-notch customer support. Only the highest quality ingredients that's been sourced from the finest hemp for your peace of mind. It's also lab tested and certified. But these are premium products that fit your budget. And I really encourage you to go check it out. The link again is in the description for today's show. Use our promo code MyWorld. You'll get 15% off. But they've got one that's like an aphrodisiac one. They've got another that helps you sleep. They've got another that helps you chill out. Like they make it easy to understand what you're getting and you know exactly where it's made right here in the United States. And again, all ranges, 0 THC all the way up to 100 milligrams, but everything else you need. CBG to help you focus. CBN to help you sleep, CBD to relieve some joint pain. I mean, that's what my wife really needs it for. She's working out really, really hard, trying to get her fitness life like she likes it. And that means sometimes it's hard to get comfortable at night if she's sore. Not with Veya. She's able to go ahead and relax and let her mind calm down and at the same time alleviate some of that pain. She's sleeping better than ever. She gives all the credit to Veya. I want you to check it out. Use the link in the description for today's show. And try the code MyWorld. You'll get 15% off, but don't forget to tell them that we sent you. So, Jeff.
Conrad.
Yes, sir.
I consider you one of my best friends, right?
Same.
I'd never steer you wrong, I don't think, right?
Nope.
So, correct pronunciation's Veya.
Yeah, it's VIIA.
I know, but
and for a country boy, we want to call it something else, but it's Veya.
Veya. So I got the care package here.
Yep.
And so, and I don't know, I'm not on the business side of this pod and everything. So I hope this sponsorship works out in more ways than one. But if you want to do myself a favor and you want to chuckle, if you want to have a little group text with the Queen.
Yes.
Hey Queen.
What do you think?
I just got a question. What do you think about Vea, specifically that little bottle with red gummies?
Oh, I know all about that one. That's the love effect. And
Conrad, what are you talking about, pal?
hey, folks, this is the real deal. Listen, I was trying to do it real classy, but you picked up what we're talking about there. They got a bestsellers tab, which is going to give you everything that you need to know, but they've got a relief button. You're hurting for certain, Vea can help. They got a focus button. You want to be sharper at work, you got a big presentation, they can help. Maybe you're just having trouble turning your mind off and going to sleep, they can help. There's a libido button. Those are the red ones, and you just heard the Queen digs it. Roll Tide. Check out the link in the description today. Use the code MyWorld, get 15% off. And I want to be clear, this is federally legal cannabis. It's American grown. It's made out of hemp. And by the way, zero is an option. So if you're listening to this and you're saying, man, I can't consume any of that for a variety of reasons, zero is an option. They have so many products that are zero THC. I don't want you to be scared off by that. But if you're like, hey, I'm a gamer and our old pal JR is, they can take care of you too. Even the Queen loves the red pack. Check it out right now. We got the description here for you in the link for today's show. Use our code MyWorld, 15% off. Yeah, the red anniversaries.
You may get her to do the read next week. So, all right, back to the show.
Grinning ear to ear, if I had to guess.
Yeah, of course.
So listen, man, you got to at least talk about the report from the Torch. It's said that Scott Hall has made it clear to his friends in the company that he signed a contract for 8 appearances. After he does the Impact taping, he says, allegedly, 2 down. When I hear that, it makes me think he's not having a good time. He doesn't believe in the company. He's not bought in. Did you feel like Scott and Kevin were ever bought in and really believed? Or was it, hey, this is a favor for our buddy Jeff, and it's this little thing that we don't really believe in? Just be honest. Which one of those do you think was real?
So you made the comment just a second ago. I think it was a Meltzer report. TNA is now in a cost-cutting mode.
Yes.
I'd like to respectfully say, when were we not in a cost-cutting mode? We were always watching the bottom line. I mean, always. On the flip side of that is Kevin and Scott, yep, I'm going to come help my buddy out and this and that. Once they get there and kind of get the lay of the land, by their DNA, they immediately go into it's just the nature of the beast. The boys will be the boys. The talent will be talent. They're going to go right into the mindset. And that's, hey, I'm going to show you guys. I'm going right into my negotiating. Only 2 left, guys. I mean, that's just putting it out in the ether of we'll see how these things go. But that to me is locker room negotiation. If they would have said that directly to my face, I would have said, point taken, man. We'll see how it goes. That was they, and it proved on out that they came in for the right reasons and never gouged for money. Never.
I just find it fascinating that, I mean, for that report to come out that says, hey, I've only signed for 8, 2 down. The quiet part said out loud is, I don't want to be here. I don't believe in this, blah, blah, blah. But we don't know the context of any of that. But it always just gets shaded that Scott Hall and Kevin Nash are these jaded, angry, bitter,
it's a better
non-team players. It's just, I don't understand.
Yeah. Look at us in 2024. I mean, whew. And not just wrestling, I can't say all of social media. Social media has just turned into worst case scenario in a lot of ways, unfortunately.
Let's talk about what's written here. It's said here in the Observer that the company, based on cable sources, did between 30 and 35,000 buys for Victory Road, which is going to bring the company 385 to 450,000 in revenue, and that's going to cut the monthly losses down. But it's written here like this is just a money losing opposition here or proposition here. Meltzer even says here's the basic financial score. Panda Energy in the 2+ years it's been funding TNA has lost $15 million on the venture. This came on the heels of a $1.6 million Health South loss, just getting the company off the ground. There have also been losses that Jerry Jarrett incurred during the interim period between Health South money and Panda Energy money. Because of the cost of buying television time, producing TV, and signing higher priced talent, the losses in recent months have hit $200,000 to $250,000 per week. But he's trying to paint it as like, hey, we're headed in the right direction, because with these pay-per-views that just happened at Victory Road, now we might only lose like 550 to 615,000 in November. And these numbers are so specific, Jeff, it makes me wonder, A, are they true? Are these accurate or even close? B, if they are, where's the leak coming from? And C, I guess, if they're not, where does this come from? Is this just total manufactured news? That can't be real. He's clearly getting that information from somewhere.
Reading the research, it kind of took me back, and I know that in the creative rooms, and I can't say it was a JB or a Dutch or Tanay, or I can't put it on any one person, but we did have different conversations through the years. I'm not saying specifically this time frame is, hey, I wonder if there's actually a leak in Dallas. Like,
I see.
but no, I mean, never had any proof of that. And then, okay, in the offices, that it's not like we were this big 400-person company. It was small, and it wasn't, I would say, completely out of the question to try to connect dots. And I'm going to kind of guess at these numbers. I'm going to guess at that number, and production and all the different numbers. But when we moved, so 02, 03, 04, the weeklies in Nashville, and I've said this multiple times, about 100 was total expense. So you got to, they didn't set the woods on fire, but that wasn't a complete drain. So whatever that number was weekly. But when we started paying for TV, that is when that time frame of, because there was a while where we did Wednesday and Thursday, Wednesday pay-per-views and Thursday for, I don't know, 12 weeks or something like that. That was the biggest, what am I talking? A cash drawdown on the line, because, and I've said this a couple of times on here, Panda just didn't have this big bank account. Collectively at their board meetings, they would allocate X amount of dollars that were going to be put into the TNA account, and you've had a drawdown. That time frame was probably the biggest drawdown. I don't think it was at 15 million of that, but I'm sure 10-ish, 8 to 10-ish. Again, I'd have to really look at a calendar, but the specifics, Conrad, to me, pretty good guesses, if you will. How old was Impact at this point? Because we kept that thing on a shoestring budget. So we started Impact in September. So we're 3 or 4 months old. Yeah, it was a shoestring budget. But I didn't hear all your numbers there. But what's your question? Was it a leak? I think on some level, somebody had to be feeding him something.
Do you think those numbers are correct? That at this point, Panda had dropped
15
million on it?
No.
I don't think so either.
No. I'm going to say certainly under 10, but I'd hate to go too far. 6, 5, 6, 7, about this time. Because when we got, so let's just say under 10. In the grand scheme of things, when you look at their valuation of an organization, that's why those numbers, especially during this time, Conrad, I'm 20 years removed from this, but in those days, I'm 35, 36, 37, and hearing different numbers and being in meetings, Panda at one time was valued at $1 billion, a billion with a B. So when you take that type of draw, Panda wasn't hurting, and they knew what game they were in without question. And they ran it on a shoestring budget, and also weren't real familiar that it was entertainment, which was a point of frustration, but that was the reality. Nobody was in panic mode like, oh my God. But we always just ran it very, very, very tight.
It's written a lot, of course, in the Observer in the Torch that you and your dad aren't exactly seeing eye to eye, and that your dad feels like you were perhaps too influenced in your taste of booking wrestling by Vince Russo. I know you probably disagreed at the time, but now with the benefit of hindsight, as an older, wiser Jeff Jarrett, closer to your dad's age now than you were then, of course, do you think you agree with your dad, or where do you stand on that? Do you think you were too bought in the new modern Vince Russo way of booking television as opposed to your dad's preference, the old school?
Buddy, what a complicated I don't say your question's not complicated, but a complicated situation, because I knew that my father, for the most part, had been removed from the business, day to day of the business for quite some time. This is '04, and he hadn't really worked full time in it since the mid '90s when he worked with Vince during around WrestleMania 10, 9, 10, 11 during that, or 10, 11 during that time frame. So it had been a while. He wasn't totally aware of, I'll just say, a multitude of things. And, his lapse in the business, relationships with talent and all that. And so my creative style, and I can't say it's a regret because I learned from it, is that I wish I would have just almost did it, even backed out of it even more, because it was really high pressured in my brain. That nobody really knew this, is that I was trying to steer the ship the best way I possibly knew. And that in my heart of hearts, sometimes I would be leaning, we'll just say, this week with the Jerry Jarrett mentality and the next week with the Russo mentality, where you just can't really get anything accomplished if you're trying to please both crowds. I just think that it's situational, and I didn't, again, I'll put it all on me, that I just didn't handle the set of circumstances the best way. But another thing, when I got done reading this research, this is probably the time frame and getting into it where me and my father were the most estranged in our entire life, because he was really hell-bent on, he wanted to do things I thought that were way too dated. And on the flip side, in Russo's mind, coming off the Attitude Era, and to his defense, that was successful. And now we're on quote unquote pay-per-view only. So we got to push the envelope. So they both wanted to do their playbook or their hand of cards or their mindset on what was both super successful to them, quote unquote, in their day. And I tried to pull a little bit from each. And I think in the grand scheme of things, I didn't do myself or anybody else any favors by, I didn't really just say, this is what I'm doing. Vince, I appreciate you. Dad, I appreciate you, but this is the way I'm going. In that I tried to kind of balance two different styles, and it a lot of times I'll say it failed. But on the flip side, I think we were innovative, and we didn't, do all strikeouts. I think we had some successes. Just the fact that we kept going and kept creating and had great talent. And I'm not just talking about Hall and Nash. I'm talking about the core talent, AMW, the AJs, the X Division, all that kind of stuff. It was the building blocks, and it was super hard time, which I didn't realize at the time, to be building a business. But circling back specifically to your question, I didn't handle every situation right. And the personal, which I didn't really find out till years later, the personal drain, the emotional drain on my personal relationship with my father did much more psyche damage than I ever imagined. But it was, damn, I don't want to go. I mean, I learned from those days, but I don't want to go back to those. Good God. That's a lot of emotional baggage to work through.
It's written in the Observer that Jerry's also said to have had the lead on 2 potential buyers, but Bob Carter has yet to give him a money figure he wants for his stock. I wanted to ask you about that. Did you ever hear that your dad?
No, that was. Go say it again. Finish your
Or,
question.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, that was when we had the gentleman that was in the mortgage business, and we had someone. We knew that there was a point of frustration, and when we charted out the courts for Fox Sports Net, I just kind of alluded to it. Okay, the financial draw was down. Panda, I don't say not just agreed, they bought into it, and let's go balls to the walls, and let's go with this. And then every month there was a point of stress, and every month there was a point of stress, and every month there was a point of stress. Well, Bill Edwards and Randy and my father, the four, we had the conversations, and you can just imagine that trying to do a weekly show or run a wrestling organization, and then trying to do what's best. And then all of a sudden, your financial partner is getting ebbing and flowing. And we got mixed signals. I think that's the best way to do it. When we continue to get mixed signals, and then we go find someone to take their place and put them in second position, and they said, not only no, but we're not even really going to give you the time of day. We're like, now, what do you want to do? But it told me in my real gut, they're in this. But it was super, super stressful on so many outlets, the business wise, the finance side, and then the personal side with my father, and trying to produce a show. And then, a situation with Jill. It was, it wasn't easy times, to say the least.
I'm not saying this to, I know where you are in your life now, and we're all glad that you are, but when you lay it all out like that, everything you got financially is on the line. You've been working with your dad. That's not going super awesome. So your family life's turned upside down outside the house. But now, at the time, the love of your life, your wife is battling for her life with cancer. And this is all going on at the same time. Again, not trying to excuse whatever, but it's no wonder that somebody looks for a release, and maybe they find it in a 12-ounce can. But goodness gracious, we got to relieve some pressure somewhere, and it ain't at work, and it ain't with family, and it ain't at home, and the bills keep coming, and the stress and pressure keeps coming. It was a pressure cooker that created a pretty combustible time for you, I imagine.
Well, to try to, and look, and I'm so grateful that I went through all this and on the other side of it, but does Club Jarrett give you a little bit different context now that that part of it?
I always knew that was the deal. You got to be able to blow off some steam.
And we blow it off steam.
Yeah. Yes, you had to, because it's no matter what you do, it's going to be criticized. It ain't good enough. Everybody's upset. Everybody's bitching. We're a day late. We're $1 short. And when we go home, we got to be super dad and super husband and put on a brave face. It's okay for tonight if we're just how many of those can I finish?
Buddy,
see.
Get Kevin to, you ain't kidding. And you know what? And looking at, we hadn't got to the pay-per-view part, but when you kind of look at our roster, again, I'm late 30s. I'm not that far removed from my mid to late 20s. So when I'm looking at an AJ Styles or a Chris Daniels or a Chris Harris or a James Storm or Eric Young or Bobby Roode, when I'm looking these guys in the face and they're up in Club Jarrett, and then we're going to work the next day and they're busting their ass, just in my gut of guts, hell, I wanted them to succeed. But I also knew damn well they're all frustrated. Wait a minute, you're bringing Hall and Nash in here, and they ain't taking that many bumps, and I know they're getting paid more than me. Yeah, that was you said combustible. That's a good word. It was just, I've always said it was just a pressure
cooker. Yeah. Something's got to give, and we know eventually it does. But let's talk about your dad here, because I know we're close to 2 hours, so we're going to start winding things down eventually. But one of the decisions that's made here, when you're going to step away from some of the day-to-day booking and creative and things like that, is your dad is going to say, okay, we're going to bring in Dusty Rhodes to help with the book, and we'll make Dutch Mantell his assistant. Bill Banks and Jeremy Borash can still contribute. That's going to get criticized in the newsletters too, because they're going to point out, well, Dusty hasn't been a successful promoter or booker since 1986. That was the last year that something he booked was profitable. Everything else had been a money loser. And the feeling was Dusty valued talking and charisma over in-ring action. And if we were really trying to be a challenger brand and be different then maybe we needed less talk and more, I don't know, like it says in the name, total nonstop action. And I think a lot of people are probably curious, like, well, that's going to be more of the old school, like Jerry liked, but that's not maybe what the future of like the X division and what people who were the hardcore TNA fans thought it was. But I guess we're trying to serve two masters. We need to super serve our base, but at the same time, we can't stay this size. We got to get the casuals looped back in. We got to have something to make them watch. And then, and that's the way ECW did it. Like Paul Heyman knew if I advertise Terry Funk, old school fans are going to show up. And while they're here, I hope they get a look at Taz and Sabu and Rob Van Dam and. When you find out your dad is working on bringing Dusty in, do you think that's obviously you have a lot of respect for what Dusty did as a performer and a booker and all that, but did you think he was the best fit for TNA in 2004?
You have it, and I don't think it was in the sheets. So I went out, I got called out to Dallas, and I'd had obviously ongoing conversations. I knew, let's just say this, that the heat was on. Lots of folks were unhappy. I was in the line.
In Dallas, you mean?
Well, I mean, we just kind of talked about it. My old man wasn't happy with me.
Yes.
Obviously, we'll just say Russo wasn't happy with me. Dixie.
Russo had quit by this point, right?
Yeah.
He quit $100,000 a year job that had him working 2 days a week. And he was telling people, when Dixie has the baby, this company's over with anyway. She'll have a new toy, blah, blah, blah.
Again, we'll go back to the pressure cooker. And I just had a different conversation. And I get called out to Dallas and have a conversation. I come home and I find out, and I'll say it's like this big revelation, is that Dusty and Bob Carter have had had phone calls, and Dusty made a trip out to the ranch. I knew that, and look, I had heard different conversations, and one story that popped in my mind actually this morning when I was doing cardio. My dad and Lawler booking back and forth, back and forth. When my dad wasn't quite ready, or Lawler wasn't quite ready to take things back over, my dad always slid Dundee, maybe Dutch, but he would slide somebody in as the assistant booker would become booker, or kind of a, I don't call it a placeover, but a transition, all that kind of stuff. I knew that the heat was on. My home situation was cracking. My old man came to me and said, well, what do you think about all this? And I was tired of fighting City Hall. And me and Dusty, we had known each other through the years, but when he came into the asylum, he would drive up every day from Atlanta. We had our arrangement, Jeff, I want to be paid when I walked in the door. That was show one. And we just kind of kept the gig going. I'd seen, I'll call it the Dusty Magic. He did a promo about AJ Styles, and I'd worked with him, and just, a midget in the trash can. But anyway, Dusty in the asylum days was super beneficial. Also, I looked at it and knew that, okay, in these set of circumstances, okay, if I'm stepping aside and my old man is campaigning and lobbying for this, Jeff, what are you doing? Just have at it, go for it. I knew the understanding of, okay, let's just kind of see how this develops. I'm not really, I'm coming into the office and they've got their team, and I knew it was going to be a challenge for Dusty as well because of the environment. I'll just say the environment of creating television with the Carters, with Dixie, with the talent, and I'm saying the talent from the legends down to the math you got to play with. You touched on a little bit about that. There was an issue of, wait, I'm going to get paid by the day as opposed by the match. That was kind of a topic of discussion. That was a topic of discussion that really heated up. And it was a point of frustration that talent wanted to get paid. If they're going to come to Orlando and be on 1-2 episodes of Impact, they wanted to get paid. And I got it because everybody wanted much money. But when Panda mandated go to day rates, Dusty was walking into that I'm going to have to go down there and book 2 shows, or there was a lot of political bandwidth that you had to churn up. And again, at the very top of the list, my dad campaigned for it. I'm just like, hey, you guys have at it. We'll see how it goes. But for a moment, you can probably relate to this, Conrad. It was a sense of relief, but I also was like, I just don't think this is going to go well.
Well, we hope today went well, but we're going to have to call it a show for now. We started off talking about Kevin Nash, and we veered off and talked about all things TNA. But 04 is such a fascinating time. I don't think we can talk about Kevin Nash without adding the full context. So when we pick this conversation up, we're going to talk about Hall and Nash with only 5 dates left on their show or on their original contract and agreement, just burying all the talent on commentary and it airing, and people being upset about that. We'll also talk about how we started to have conversations about renewing them, how Scott Hall dyed his hair and Kevin Nash didn't. And that meant apparently Kevin Nash didn't care. I don't know how that 2+2 connects. We'll also talk about the report that's in the Torch that Jerry is trying to steal the company away from Jeff to quote unquote, show my son how it's done, and so much more. There's so much to unearth here as we talk about Kevin Nash and his tenure in TNA. If you've got a question for us, the best place to ask it is on our YouTube. You want to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications bell. It's your home for all things Jeff Jarrett. It's myworldpod.com. That's myworldpod.com. We're going to be going live soon and taking your questions, and you don't want to miss your chance to interact with The Last Outlaw. It's totally free, so hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And I also want to mention, if you just can't get enough of our wrestling content, boy, we've got a brand new series that we've just recently debuted where we're talking to the Godfather every single month here at adfreeshows.com.
It ain't easy.
Podding ain't easy is what it's called now. And we actually had a chance to talk about the Godfather down in Memphis. Let's take a listen.
If I was there 3-4 months, I might have went to wrestling school 3-4 times. Maybe. The rest of the time, brother, I swear to you, I'm hanging in strip clubs. So, all right. So Larry Sharp calls me one day and he goes, hey, you got to come in today. Jerry Lawler wants to take a look at you. Mind you, bro, I know nothing. I think one day I learned how to lock up, and that's it. That's all I know about wrestling. I've been there 3 months and I've been in strip clubs the whole time. And so Jerry, I get in the ring with Jerry Lawler, right? And he goes, throw a punch. He goes, throw a kick. He goes, and he tells me what to do. And he goes, well, I can work with you. So he hires me. Okay. All I know in wrestling, bro, all I know in wrestling is a hit to lock up. And I don't even do that well. And so my very first match ever, not knowing anything about wrestling, not one thing about wrestling. I thought it was a half-ass shoot. Okay. I wrestled Jerry in Memphis, Tennessee on a Monday night, which is big back then. That's a big thing. I wrestled him on a Monday night, Memphis, Tennessee. I beat him in the middle, 1, 2, 3. I win the USWA, or not US, it was the CWA, the Memphis title, heavyweight title, my first match, not knowing anything.
How about that? First match. He's the
champ. I was there, the soul taker.
You don't get these stories anywhere else, only at adfreeshows.com. We've got more than 100,000 hours of bonus content. That sounds too good to be true, but it's real, and it starts at just $9 a month. Not only do you get bonus content from all of our co-hosts every month, you also get Lex Luger, and you get Tully Blanchard, and you get Mike Chioda, and you get Nick Patrick, and you get Davey Crockett. And now you get Learning Lucha with Sam Adonis. There's something for everybody, including all of our StarCast stage shows and panels. That's a who's who of professional wrestling, all available to you now at adfreeshows.com. So it's not just about the content, it's about the sense of community that we build. And boy, we had a great show today and a lot of folks hanging out with us. Want to give a special shout out to Eric Jones and Aaron Sheen and Michael, and I know Coach Rosie and Isaac, and so many folks were here as a part of our live studio audience. Greatly appreciate all of your support. You too, Doug Ritter. Thank you guys for showing up and showing out for us. And stay tuned because we're going to be back next week talking about the Motor City Machine Guns.
Ooh.
And before you know it, we'll pick up our conversation about Kevin Nash. All this and more coming your way. Hit that subscribe button at myworldpod.com and tune in tomorrow night to see Jay Lethal take that millennial cowboy to the woodshed with some managerial advice from young Cody. See you next week right here on My World.
Peace.
SaveWithConrad.com.
My name is Doug Gustafson, and we are from Columbus, Ohio. First learned of Conrad through his podcast network. I'm a big 83 Weeks fan. Probably got into a little bit more credit card debt than what we wanted to during the course of the pandemic. We wanted to get rid of some of that. My wife and I had luckily bought the house many years ago and had quite a bit of equity built up in it. We are looking to actually redo our bathroom, things around the house that we wanted to do with the other equity that we have left over. We've been talking about refinancing forever, and I finally just took the plunge and called the number, got a hold of him, and from start to finish, it was just fantastic. I had Diane within the day. The communication with her was fantastic. The process moved quicker than I could have ever hoped. My name's Doug Gustafson from Columbus, Ohio. I ended up saving $800 a month with Save with Conrad, and am able to also update our bathroom.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender.
SaveWithConrad.com.